Hey, Chris Lipe here. My hope is that the videos I do here on YouTube are helping you make better music. Singing, guitar playing, recording tips. And I've been asked a number of times since I started doing this channel to give a studio tour. And I thought that was a great idea. But I want to do the studio tour in a way that doesn't just show you what my room and what my gear is like, but that goes through why I made the decisions to set it up like I did. And that will help you guys in setting up your own home studio. This basement home studio consists of 2 rooms, this main control room area that you've seen on many videos, and the tracking room that is directly behind me. It's a small tracking room and has been largely taken over by my 6-year-old drumming son. But that room is also used when I'm tracking any other musician, primarily vocalists. If I have another vocalist come in to lay something down on a jingle or a theme song that I'm working on, I'll put them over there, and then I have the ability to listen and edit, and like a real recording studio. The hub of my studio is built around an iMac 2015 27-inch with 32 gigs of RAM, and I have an Apogee Ensemble interface, which I'll talk more about in a minute. I use Logic Pro and I use Live, Ableton Live. For radio, voiceover, I use a lot of Adobe Audition. In my free recording course linked below, I go over the strengths of each of those DAWs and why I choose to use each one for a specific purpose. Since I do radio and creative music, YouTube videos, jingle writing, all of those things require slightly different feature sets, and that's why I use so many different DAWs. This is the Apogee control software that allows me to route different signals different places, and the Apogee interface goes into my computer via Thunderbolt. That's this bottom guy right here. And I do most of my monitoring through this PreSonus central station. I've got 3 different sets of monitors in my studio. I've got the M-Audio DSM ones, which they don't make anymore, but I love them. Those are my primary monitors. Then I've got the middle size ones are Best Buy Special that are hooked up to a regular consumer receiver underneath my desk. And then I've got those Tenoys, which are real cheap speakers. And primarily, I would say 80% of the time, I'm working off the DSM ones. They sound great. They're nice and balanced. I'm really familiar with how they respond in this room. But because we all know that different listening environments expose different things in mixes, I have these other speakers that are more like what would be placed around my house, maybe more like what I'd hear in the car, and I can switch back and forth. And the PreSonus central station allows me to do that. I have them wired up so that speaker A is my DSM ones, speaker B are the Best Buy Specials, and speaker C are the Tenoys. And I'm able to adjust the trim levels so they're all right where they need to be. I can also go to mono real easily and listen. The central station also manages my headphone mix and my talkback to the other room. The Apogee has the talkback functionality and it has the ability to do multiple speakers, but I like the tactile upfront nature of having a separate monitoring thing in the central station. It was harder to get to in the Apogee, and I like being able to go over there real quick and press buttons. My main preamp for speaking, as well as direct bass, and I love it for direct guitar as well, is the Avalon 737 SP. I've had that thing for, 12 years now, and I discovered it when I was at Sweetwater as a studio engineer there, and I love the sounds. The compressor is forgiving, not terribly responsive, but great for spoken word and great for milder vocals. And you can see I've got, I'm talking through it right now actually. You can see my compression settings. I use for speaking a decent amount of compression, and I boosted the high end and the low end and cut the mids just a little bit. For most of my aggressive vocals, I'm going through the manly core, and you've seen, if you've been following the channel, you've seen me do other videos with that guy. The manly core has a built-in limiter circuit as well as a 3-to-1 fixed ratio optocompressor. And that thing is amazing for being able to do real quiet vocals and real loud vocals, real aggressive vocals, and still having a decent waveform come into your DAW. But it's more than that for me. Interacting with a hardware compressor and hardware limiter when I'm doing aggressive vocals really helps me play to the mic or sing to the mic in a way that feels like it's part of my voice. It's tough to really articulate without someone having already experienced it. But if you can get in and whisper into a mic and then yell into a mic and then interact with the tubes and interact with the compressor and the hardware that's in there, it's different than interacting with software. So Avalon for more mild stuff. I also love the Avalon for acoustic guitar. But for anything real aggressive, man, that Manly is my go-to preamp for those sorts of things. You can also see my record player over there, and that thing moves around the house depending on the different listening moods that I'm in. But I still really enjoy putting it in the studio and listening to some of my favorite albums that I feel like sound better on vinyl. I love listening to this one, mastered from the original tapes and put on vinyl. Soundgarden's Down on the Upside. An original pressing of The Joshua Tree by U2. Can't go wrong with that. And then, although this isn't originally released on vinyl, this album on vinyl sounds great. Nice and bass rich, and I like the vibe that it gets. I also use the record player in the studio for some effects and some limited amounts of sampling that I do in some of my music, and you'll hear some of that as this channel progresses as well. All of my routing is held together with a patch bay. And a lot of studios this size maybe don't use a patch bay, but before I had one, I got so sick of crawling behind my desk or rerouting cables at the component level that I thought the patch bay really is going to be one of the main tools of the studio, and it has been. The bottom row of the patch bay represents all of the feeds from the various input sources. So the number 18, for example, which is connected with the yellow cable, is the output of the Avalon. And it is being fed, as you can see, into channel number 3 with the yellow cable. It is being fed into channel 3 of the Apogee. And with a very simple adjustment, I can move that yellow cable from channel 3 to channel 4 and switch the mic that I'm talking into right here from the Avalon to the Manly, just by moving it from 3 to 4. I don't have to do anything else. Then the other bottom connectors are coming from the other room, and I have an 8-channel snake going through the wall into the patch bay that allows me to patch that room, have it isolated. It's super cool. I keep my main guitars directly behind me so I can grab them and use them at a whim. I've got a Fender American Deluxe Telecaster, a Fender American Jazz Bass, an Ibanez S-Series Prestige, Tacoma Acoustic, and a Fender American Deluxe Stratocaster. And for all my keyboard stuff, I have this CME 88-key weighted keyboard controller. There are no sounds that go through there. Instead, I trigger everything from Live or Logic, so it's just a MIDI controller. But it feels like a real piano, which I really appreciate since piano was my first instrument. My room is treated with various RLX kits. I use the RLX diffusers, the RLX bass traps, and their foam. And I've got them placed around the studio in various designer ways to make it look good. But the main thing that I want to consider when I'm treating a room like this that's pretty much all drywall, like most basement or finished basement studios, is that I want the foam, I don't want to over foam. I want my foam to be killing opposing hard surfaces. So if I've got foam on one 2x2 area of a wall, the other wall isn't going to have that area foamed. It's going to be the regular wall. So it's like opposing checkerboards, kind of. What's soft on one wall needs to be hard on the other wall. And then, of course, you round out the corners with bass traps, and your diffusers should be in the back of your studio, like mine are as well. As you can see in the camera angle behind me, all the sound coming from the monitors goes back there and gets diffused. It bounces off, not directly back to the listening position. I hope you've enjoyed this studio tour. Please let me know if you have any questions, if I can answer anything else for you. And I hope that this inspires you to maybe revisit your home studio setup and be inspired to set things up in a way that encourages creativity. We'll see you for more.